and welcome to another podcast episode. I'm your host, Natalia, and today we're going to talk about faith needs community to heal my brokenness. With me today are Jaspir, Akash, and Zozo. Thank you so much, guys, for willing to be a part of this podcast today. Brokenness is a part of every person's story. Our natural response is often to hide, isolate, and believe that we need to fix ourselves before talking to God, before returning to God or community. And in this conversation, we're going to explore how faith and community work together to bring about healing. I think in another episode, we also spoke about how we love to isolate and keep ourselves away from community. But also, we know that healing comes from God alone. Having said that, why do you think, in your experience, we need community? And what role does prayer, accountability, and friendship have in healing?
Yeah, thank you for giving me this time. I'm Jasbir Singh. I also would like to tell you that I'm also a Rehabilitation Council registered clinical psychologist and also a born again believer. So I also share little lights on from what the psychological perspectives have to say about all these things. I think first of all we need to know like what do we mean by community. So I found through the definition, basically if I have to distill the information, it's basically about people living together and they are working to achieve something similar, right? And in context of biblical community, I think it becomes more of what we share, the similar things like the values we share, the faith that we share. It's true that God ultimately heals us, but He has put people in our lives to, be a channel where healing can take place. Personally, I would say that as an individual, we don't exist as individuals. We are always interconnected. Since from the beginning of our birth, like we have a caregiver, we have a mother. Like not necessarily the mother is usually the caregiver, but we usually take mother as a caregiver. And then we have, if you're living in this country, we have collectivist society. So we have our grandparents, we have our uncle, auntie, right? So from the inception of birth, we are already in the relationship. The first relationship begins with the mother. Then we grow up, we learn things from them, and then slowly we learn about ourselves, we make identity. In psychological terms, once we reach the adolescent, that's where the time is, where identity, actually we are beginning to form identity, right? And then when we reach the adulthood, we begin to have some sort of ideas about who we are. So what happens in community is, for me personally, that it's a space where I can learn something about myself, and it's a place where I can be who I am, and that is like providing me a safety, and I think, and church is a place I think where like that is accessible. And I'll come to that later, but I would also like to hear what others have to say.
I think we are just social creatures, and at least our generation, we have seen by living in homes where everyone knew everyone, like everyone knew everyone around them. So we knew our neighbors. We used to do life with them, and slowly, along the years, now we almost do not interact with our neighbors at all. And I think somehow, if you see, the more densely populated the area, the more you see that the people are not interacting with the people around them. And in all of this, when we see so many people, but still when we see that we ourselves are so kind of so alone, especially if you do not live with your family, I think you need more of a community than ever. People find their community in different ways. Church is just the very basic and very easy way to find a community, but if you just look around and observe, you will see that people they either go to run clubs, they play with, they have other sports that they go to, or and just anything they do to find a community. And so we know that there is an inherent need. God made us this way to be around people and not do life alone.
Okay. So, in the context of healing, why do we need community when God heals us? When He is the one who heals us, why do we still need community? Why do we need prayer? Why do we need people around us? So, it's something. It's something that God uses, even though the true healing comes from Him. What He uses people to heal us, to help us in the process. Hurt also comes from people, and healing also comes from people in a way that God uses them. And it's healing is a process. It's not like this. When we talk about hurt and healing, most I think in this context here, we're talking about emotional, mental mostly, and some parts is also physical pain, physical illness, but most of the time it's emotional healing and the hurt that people bring as well. And because of this, we need others to assure us that there is God along in this journey, and it is actually through people that we are reminded that when you can't think what's best for yourself, you need people you can actually trust to help you get through with it. And you need friendships. It's not like my friends have said, it's not something that you can do alone. We are meant to be in a community. We are social people. So even in the healing process, it's even the Bible says anyone who is sick, you pray for each other, you encourage one another, do good works, and love one another, right? And to love someone is to also owe them your time, and you are also responsible in a way for their healing as much as God has healed you.
So you did talk about healing. So and healing takes time. You said that, right? So what has, in your experience, what has God taught you through this waiting periods, through your waiting season when you did need healing? And how do you encourage yourself, and how do you keep continuing to trust God when sometimes it's very slow, or sometimes it's just you don't see when the next chapter is going to begin?
I'll come back to this question. I would like also to visit the previous question. I think that's very important. So as I was talking about the early relationship that we have as a child, right? So we are wired in that way that our template, we have an internal template of how we relate with people. So if our caregivers had been very inconsistent, the love had not been there at homes. So we have different kind of attachment style that I'm bringing in here. And as we grow up, the research has also shown that attachment styles are consistent even in adulthood, right? So I'm not going to the technical aspects, but I just want to just give you a brief overview. So there is anxious, avoidant, disorganized, and secure. So if we had been like our parents left us when we needed them, it can be different things, right? The trauma, when we talk about, it can be either the parents leaving us and giving us inconsistent care. Sometimes it can be that our parents, like, they passed away, or sometimes it can be just abuse. The parents had been abusive to us, right? So we grow up. Now when we grow up, what we are also looking in others is through that angle, right? So sometimes you're not looking at people. When I meet you for the first time, I may be looking at you as a new person, but when I'm starting to have a relationship, I might bring that thing up, right? So I might not trust you. I may take time to trust you, right? Because that's how it has been. But what I found interesting over the time, especially since last year, this has been really, really helpful for me, that when I was reading Romans 8, right? First of all, one thing which is very consistent is primarily in the Bible, which is God's love. That no matter what happens, God's love is not going to change. It's the basic, right? Now, why we have difficulties because we base we become so outcome oriented, right? If I pray for something, it doesn't happen, then automatically it does become that, oh, something I did was wrong, something God is not answering because he's not pleased with me. But in fact, God is telling, he loves us so much, right? We have plenty of examples. I'm quoting Romans 8 just at one of those examples. Now, since last year, what has happened personally that so I'm learning to know that no matter how far I am, I'm gonna be still loved, and that becomes a place for me to heal. That becomes a place that I can always come back. Now, it's also very interesting. The research has shown that the way we are being attached is also how we actually project our attachment to God also, right? So, for example, if I'm anxious, then if I pray to God, I will be also thinking, oh, I think God is also like that, right? This is what also usually happens. But when I read the Bible, when I'm saturated with His Word, when I realize, oh no, God is different, a real change begins to happen. And in psychological terms, it's known as corrective emotional experiences, right? New patterns of relationships. Now, in context of people, same thing happens. Like, for example, we have home groups, we have church. Once I know that I am loved, people, when I speak up to people, they are listening to me, they are not, they are not keeping me away. Then I begin to form new patterns of relating with others. Then I begin to trust people, So what is happening? That new relationship templates are formed. And also speaking neurologically, neuroplasticity is one thing, right? New experiences are also getting formed. So in that context, I feel church and community is essential to have those new experiences. But I also say this with a caution that not necessarily that everybody in the church would be listening to you that way, right? You will still get hurt. You'll still have difficult experiences. But I'm talking about what if everybody is recognizing that part that, I can trust the other person. And for example, I can trust Akash, and Akash can trust me, Zozo can trust me that way. If everybody is feeling that way, I think things would change. And I think that takes a lot of courage. And I think with time, I think, as Zozo has mentioned about process, right? It's a process. So it is a process, and process takes time. So it's okay, I think, to take your time, but make sure that you give your time, to heal and not to go away from that place. Coming to the next question, that is how God has taught me through waiting, right now, to be honest, I'm going through a waiting period. In official terms, I would say I'm unemployed. Although I'm working, I am still doing my part-time work. I'm doing freelancing also. But a regular job is what I'm looking for. So initially, when I gave more than 8 interviews so far in this last 9 months, and every time I'm seeing a rejection, right? So I sometimes get very overwhelmed. But over the time, my journey, I've also begin to see this rejection as something like redirection for me, right? So what has happened, initially I was questioning that why it's happening to me this way. I really need a job, I need to pay my rent and everything. But now it has become, every time I go and give an interview, I'm reading a lot of new things. And that is actually helping me to learn new things. And for example, one thing, now we are going towards the artificial intelligence and machine learning. I would have not learned about coding or Python or AI for that matter if I would have not got rejected in jobs. So that way, if I'm taking this as an experience for me, that God is working through me in something, right, which He can use later on. I think I think from this perspective, it's keeping me grounded and keeping me, stable and persevere. So this is my view about, that how God is working through me in waiting.
Yes, healing takes time, and sometimes in you are in one of three phases where either you are going to get into a waiting period, or you just cross the waiting period, or you are in the waiting period right now. And it can be also that in different aspects of your life, you are in different stages. Like as Jasbir said, maybe in the career aspect you are in the waiting period, but in other aspects you might be doing fine. So in my experience, my first waiting period that I experienced was back around in 2017, when I was I just finished my high school and wanted to get into a college. And I think and that was the year I came to faith, and that was one of the years that God really built me up. Um it felt really bad to see all of your friends in college and not you, but I think nothing could have been better. And I wouldn't want to, like, looking back at my life, um, if I went straight to college, I think God wouldn't have the time with me to mold me in one way. So all the hurt that was in the beginning, where I did not get a college, was slowly, within a year, it was completely, I think, gone. So I think you have to uh, see and allow God to work through you, and you can't. You, sometimes it just is better to be thankful for your circumstance and see what God has next for you, rather than fight against your circumstances. So that's what I think in terms of waiting period and healing, going through a waiting period.
So yes, healing does take time. It's a whole process, and I will talk about what I have experienced. In terms of healing, and how long it took for me, and why was it why does it take so much time, when you sometimes you just want God to like speak the word and I will be healed. And everything will go back perfect, like the moment he said you're healed. And most of the time it does not happen. For me, I did went through a very difficult phase, and I was on antidepressants for more than almost 2 years, and it was one of the most difficult time of my life. But at the same time, I did needed I know I needed that as well. I needed help, but through it all, I could see how God was working again. I was praying for healing when healing doesn't seem to be on the way, but also it was through that it was through this that my relationship with God became the strongest. And how it happens is, during this time, when you during this period of healing, uh, it's like God is the reason why I feel that it's taking time, is God is peeling or healing the root cause of whatever you're going through. Sometimes as human, we treat the symptoms, or we just try to treat the symptoms ourselves. But what God does is he goes into the root of whatever you're going through. So all the past how to say experiences, or the trauma that we've had as a child, or whatever you've faced growing up, sometimes you push that aside, and it came out as something, it came out as an illness, right? But God does not treat those whatever is coming out. He does not treat the symptoms. He is going back into that. And when you say you've had a breakthrough, the breakthrough is not the destination. It's the gate where you start. It's the gate where you start. You start from there, and He is leading you through the way. And He has forced me to, whether I like it or not, He made me sit through all the hurt, all the pain. It's like you're not jumping into the healing. You are actually reflecting it, going through, processing it. And it was also through this process, through this reflecting, you're sitting down, sitting with your feelings, and that's when the community comes in as well. So you sit down, you reflect, and you talk to someone, and they also share their experiences with you, and that opens up a new perspective. Or sometimes even the hurt that you have faced, it's maybe because of some misunderstanding, or that you need some encouragement, or you need accountability from your part as well. So when you want to heal, you also have to take a lot of steps. You have to push yourself beyond your comfort zone to heal. And because of that, unless you sit with your issues, you're not going to magically get healed. And I think that's why it's taking time. It's a long process, in a way that you have to go through it. And this I will it's his promise as well, that I will be with you through it all. And in this process, you need your friends to encourage you, and you need your community, people you can trust, because unless you trust someone, you're never going to share your personal stories or difficulties. So the faith community is something that it's a group of people that you can trust, that they can be confidential when it matters as well, and also who will intercede for you. You have to pick people who can intercede for you as well. This reminds me of the Bible, where the paralytic man was carried by his friends, and Jesus said, because of the faith of the friends, that you are healed. So sometimes you can't even carry yourself to God, not because you've lost faith, but because you can't walk on your own, that you need people to carry you into healing. And it takes courage as well to reach out, and to also admit that you're hurting first. So it's like, I don't know, in physical illness, you first show symptoms, and then you get diagnosed, and then you get the treatment. And the treatment, it takes time, right? And like Jasbir said, forming new experiences, positive experiences, will rewire your brain in a way that you can trust again that God is working in you. So even though it takes time, it's going to be worth it, and you are going to come out as something being rebuilt, not just as a victim, but you're coming out as a survivor, right? So for trauma, or for emotional hurt, for anything, that victim identity doesn't, you don't only identify as, oh, I am the victim, but you also need friends, you also need community, that you survive through it all. Yeah.
Continuing with your thought, there's a saying called hurt people, right? So what do you think, what do you think about unforgiveness? How does sometimes healing get delayed because of unforgiveness? Now, of course, I'm talking about emotional or mental healing, right? So let's just talk a little bit about your perspective on that.
Zozo brought an interesting point about identity, right? Once we go through pain, emotional pain, or any kind, and we have an identity, right? We identify in various ways. But the Bible also says that we are a new creation now, and things have changed, right? So identity now becomes very different, right? And that becomes common to all, right? Now we are identifying as equal in that sense, right? So you might be different racially, you might be different or differently, but once we come to church, we become equal in that sense. Also, she interestingly pointed out that God is not interested in healing symptomatically, right? Like the symptoms. Also in my work, I'm not working on symptoms, because symptoms is a story for me to go deep in, to understand what is happening and what has happened all this time. So symptoms are just manifestations, right? So they can help us to identify what is wrong, but treating symptoms is like it's like fixing for some time, and fixing things doesn't help, right? We need something more deep work, and deep work usually is painful for sure, but is also is something which can bring us back, which can restore us, right? Uh, Forgiveness. Once we talk about forgiveness, it's very interesting, right? How we are made actually. We are not only like physically we talk about. So we all go through stress in life, and sometimes when stress is extreme, our body is made in such a way that we can deal with stress, right? And what happens in the brain is that there are two systems, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, basically. So once we are stressed, that part of the brain gets activated and that prepares us. And that's helpful. If I see a snake in front of me, of course, I won't be relaxed, right? I would want to run away. And that's where it's helping me, that my attention is focused, my digestion stops, the blood is flowing to the legs so that I can run as fast as I can. So that's adaptive, very helpful. And that's wonderful also. And once the danger is gone, then my body comes back to the normal state. It's relaxed, digestion takes place. Now, what has happened over the time? Imagine if that state, the stress state, is continued for a very long time. Like even though if there is no snake, but you're still having your body is experiencing those symptoms. Your body is still tensed. Your heart is raised. Your breathing is higher, which is meant for that particular situation, then it really takes a toll on your body, right? And then we now hears about a lot of issues like inflammatory issues. We talk about like the inflammatory diseases that we are coming up, right? Something has to do with cortisol is one of the hormone. Why I'm bringing this up? Because once we are in that stressful state, if somebody has hurt me, if I'm continuing to think negative for over a long period of time, that hormone or that state of mind will be there continually in my body. So what I'm indirectly, you may be thinking this is something I'm just thinking, but you see, our mind and body is also connected. You're thinking again and again in that negative loop, and the cortisol is building up in your body, and it's taking a toll on your body. And there will come a time, now it will turn into a disease, right? And I'm not saying that all diseases are like that. Like that would be like that. I'm not giving that, but there are some times when it has to do with emotional thing. That once our emotional part is healed, then also physically we start healing, right? So having a mindset where we are intentionally being grateful, having a mindset where we are intentionally thinking about the positive thing, as Paul says in Philippians, like put your mind on the lovely thing, excellent things, right? That takes intentional process. It's very easy to be automatically think on the negative things, but intentionally takes a lot of courage to think about positive things. But what we are doing over the time, again and again, we are lowering those systems. We are bringing back cortisol down, and we are bringing the parasympathetic system. Through prayers is one of the wonderful means, actually. When we pray, we are saying things out to God. We are venting out, and that also really helps us, right? Now, from the spiritual side, why prayer is also very important is because God considers prayers as something He likes prayer. I was reading Revelation, and it talks about God's people's prayer are incense. What is incense? Incense is something so aromatic, something so beautiful, right? So He's treating prayers as such. So I would encourage, and I wonder that we should be praying more often like that. And I think it's intentional process. I'm saying that, and I have already mentioned about that long-term unforgiveness, resentment. It's actually harming you more and more, right?
So when Jasbir was speaking, I was reminded of David, and when he was in that period of his life when he was away from God, and he wrote down that my bones are rotting away. I think he somehow, even though without all the research papers we have now, he knew something. uh, when you are not when you are doing wrong and away from God and not forgiving others, there is a part of you that it'll affect your physical health as well. So uh, luckily, I think I have been in a household where I've seen forgiveness a lot, so it doesn't come as a task for me. Mostly, you know, I think I cannot hold resentment from my very young ages. So I think that's one very good thing about me, and uh, I I thank God that I grew up in this way. But yes, and so an example that I can give you from the workplace is when people are just trying to get one up on other people. I think it's more of they are holding themselves back to just that level rather than just focusing on their own thing and moving on with their work. So that's one way I can draw a parallel to how forgiveness helps you rather than the people who have done wrong to you. But Zo, what are your thoughts on this?
So, yes, if only we knew how forgiveness helps us more than the people who we forgive. And I will admit, like, as I used to be, not as much now. I used to be a very resentful person. Like, I don't speak much, I don't express much, but I really hold grudges inside my heart. And it does affect me a lot because we don't talk about it, we just shove it away, and you still hold that anger in your heart. You just don't deal with it. So, not having forgiveness in your heart, you just became bitter. You're like, your world revolves around that anger, that you cannot see people in a good light. And it's, you think that even though the other person might not ask for your forgiveness, or they won't even know that they've done something wrong, why does God insist on forgiveness? Forgive others as I've forgiven you. Sometimes it's not because they deserve it from your perspective, or like, as humanly speaking, sometimes they don't deserve it, but because you deserve that healing. And it does, and because of unforgiveness in my heart as well, I was unable to love others. And I remember saying this to Nat and all also, like, it was getting difficult for me to read love one another in the Bible because I couldn't forgive them. That means I am withholding love to them. And it's very difficult to love someone who have hurt you and to try to build a relationship again. But once you know the true power of forgiveness, then you know that it's setting you free. And it's and as long as you have the unforgiveness in your heart, that is blocking your healing, because you are not, that means you haven't dealt with the situation yet, and you haven't surrendered everything to God. If even if you're struggling, saying that, Lord, I don't think I can forgive this person for what they've done to me, and you're also conflicted, because it says, forgive others as I've forgiven you, like the Lord's Prayer, forgive our sins as you forgive those who sin against us, right? And it is a struggle for all of us, but it is also a lesson for all of us. Again, in this, you sit with it, you realize the problem, and you also know that the other side of forgiveness is you blooming. And you don't have to, once through the healing process, you also need to learn that, if you forgive someone, then you don't really have to reconcile with them, or talk to them, build a relationship again. You can forgive someone in your heart, and just surrender everything to God. So even healing is also about surrendering to God as well. And once you surrender, that means you understand that you have to forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the peace of mind.
This reminds me of the analogy of, a pipe which has dirt inside, and no matter how clean the water is, when it's coming through it, it's going to be dirty. So, that's what unforgiveness does. Like any conversation, anything, you're processing it through that unforgiving heart. And that's how your conversations come out, right? So, yeah, another thing that I was, our concluding question, oftentimes our greatest ministries come from our deepest wounds, something that has caused us a lot of grief and pain. So, how does God use our own experiences to encourage someone else? And can brokenness be a part of your story, a part of your testimony? How can God use that story?
That's an interesting one, actually. Like, I think we are all broken in some ways. It's just that, or when we are going through a lot of rough times, then we think that we are the worst one. We are feeling the worst thing, but actually, that's not the case. Because that's what I was talking about. During that state of mind, everything narrows down, and then we are not able to recover the good memories. We are not able to recover what others have done. It's a difficult phase for that particular moment. For others, it prolongs because of certain issues. I think we have plenty of examples in the Bible. I'm always amazed by the story of Joseph, right? Joseph, how he has gone through multiple things. And at last, what did he say? He says that, as for you, you meant it for evil, but God made it for something good. Now, he's not saying that every evil is good, right? That's not the case. But what we are understanding that God is sovereign in everything, right? So even if I am going through something, the system had been unfair to me, people had been unforgiving, or my family had been, been abusive for that matter. Now, they are bad in itself. They are evil. We have to call those things out, right? But what is happening over the process is that these things are all in redirection to something which God is turning me to. And that's what we see in the story, Joseph's story. Joseph would have not thought that after some years he would be, somebody important figure in the Bible, right? And interestingly, if you read the next part of that verse, it also says that he did that so that many people will come. He will save many people through him. Isn't it interesting that I think this is a perfect example of what Nat you are asking, that his brokenness story actually brought healing to the Israelites, the nation, right? We have example of Job going through a lot of tough times. Job was not aware of those things, that what is happening in the heavens, like in the heavens. And most of the time we are also not aware of what is happening. But I think that's where I'll come to the personal part, but let me come to the biblical part. We have examples from the Bible that they must have also felt that way, that where is God in these times? But we know through those stories that God has been always there with them. So this gives me encouragement every time that, okay, right now I might be seeing my situation from very temporal time, because for God, time it's not like mine. And that's where I need to also pray to God when I'm praying, that God help me to see through your way. Because if I'm seeing from my own time, I'm very specifically situated in a time-space matter, right? So I can't see beyond what he can see. And that's why my thinking, my imagination becomes very limited. And that's why when I'm in rough times, if I'm praying to God, help me to see through his perspective, then I think things changes. Now, I'm talking about my journey now. For example, if I am going through the tough times where I'm waiting for a job, I'm having rough times personally, so I'm learning new things, how God has been with me through these times. I got closer to God. What I can later do is, if somebody who comes with a similar experiences, I have something from my experience to share. So I'm not bringing up a story, giving a false narrative to that. Oh, it's okay, God can heal. That's so easy to tell. But it's more honestly, I can tell to that person with an honest heart that, there have been times when I felt God is very distant from me. There are times when I felt angry at God. In fact, God allows that in the Bible, and it's a wonderful thing, right? And so even that person will feel, oh, that's a genuine experience. He's not pretending, that it's everything is going to be smooth. God heals like a very linearly. That's how our perspective is, that God heals through a linear perspective, but that's not like that. It's more of a cyclic process. I feel so that can actually encourage somebody else. Through my story, I'm interested to listen to what others have to say.
For me, I think I don't know how much I have helped other people. Like, I think I would have to ask them. But in general, uh, growing up in India, and especially in North India, I think there is a lot less empathy in people here. So when we see, when we experience God helping us through our hurt, I think one of the very basic things that comes in our instincts is to be empathetic towards others and their situation. So if, as I said, there was a year where I was looking for a college. There was, and now I won't look at some other people who are maybe not doing very good in academics and be dismissive of them, right? So my natural instincts would be to encourage them or to help them in whatever they are in need of. So that's one thing I think it unlocks in our mind when we see us being helped by God through our difficult times.
Yes, like my friend said, experiences does help us relate to people and be more empathetic, right? And even before getting into this, I think the forgiveness part, I think I've missed that. Sometimes we're so focused on forgiving others that we fail to forgive ourselves, right? This is my fault. I have brought this upon myself, and so I don't deserve the forgiveness. And that could apply to so many things in life. Any situation that you got yourself into, or any trauma, some people blame themselves for so many things that they have gone through, that they could forgive others but not themselves, right? Sometimes we are so hard on ourselves, and this is also what's missing, right? Sometimes we talk about I don't think we talk about self-love enough. We're supposed to give love, but not to ourselves most of the time. That's what we think. So it's also important to forgive yourself for healing as well. That's what I wanted to remind. And also, if you've done the forgiveness on your part, then God will take care of the rest. Whether you could have built another relationship with that person, or reconcile, or whether you part ways peacefully, that's God will take care of it. You just do your part and He'll take care of the rest. I think that I wanted to clarify that as well. And other than that, can brokenness become part of our testimony? Yes, it does. And many a times we do question God, like why is this happening to me? Why aren't you healing me? Or why did I even have to go through this? And yes, I have also questioned God in this way so many times, and but at the end of the day, Romans 8:28, right? All things work together for good for those who love Him, for those who love God. So you trust in the goodness of God, and it is also through our experiences that we are not just I sympathize with you. You actually empathize with them, and you're like, since I have gone through that, I can also become a part of, since God has healed me, I can also take an important role in this person's healing. And while I was hurting or in the process of healing, I want I want fellowship. I want friends who are there for me. So once I have crossed that line, I also want, it makes me want to become a healing place, or someone who brings healing to others hurting as well. That comes back to heal people, right? So unless you're healed, sometimes it's very easy to drag the other person down as well with your own thoughts and the things that you're dealing with. You could actually it's not very it's difficult to also how to say, before you healed, it's difficult to bring someone else up as well, right? So once you've healed, God will, it is upon you that you use that as a testimony, and you encourage others, because our experiences are not unique in a way. All of us are experiencing, we have experienced, or we are experiencing brokenness, or we are hurting. So what the good things that God has done to you, it is your duty to show it, to tell others that they may be encouraged as well. And once you I think it's also become a very important, what we have experienced is very close to our calling as well, because unless you have gone through that, it's very difficult for people to connect with you also, to relate to you as well. And it's like your heart is in that place, because you also know what they're going through, and you also know what the Lord has done through you as well, and in a way that it drives our ministry and our calling as well, right? And like for me, I don't have any theological knowledge in that way, or about psychology like Jasbir. But what I can do from my part is use the experience that God has given me to help people around me. Or and I do remember a few days ago, I was talking to a friend, and I realized if I had not gone through or if I had not experienced that healing from my part, if I had not gone through that experience, I would not be able to relate with that person at all. I would not be able to talk to them. And at least I know from experience what to say, what not to say at least. And also bring, and not become too preachy about it. Sometimes like you just say, oh, God will take care, we'll just pray for you. That's not enough sometimes, no? So you don't get too preachy, but at the same time, you don't miss out on the healing that God could bring as well. So yes, that's from my part.
Thank you everyone for being so open and vulnerable and sharing so many of your experiences, speaking from wounds most likely. So just a very, very last thought, just in one line or in one thought. It's a little bit of a parallel conversation, but Jasbir, you did talk about sometimes people in the church itself hurt people, right? And and that's okay. We all come in messed up and broken, and it's okay. But then there are a lot of people also who, because of certain hurts, some uncle, auntie, some person said something and they really get hurt personally, they feel judged, and then a lot of times then they walk away from the church, they walk away from God. So if that's someone who's listening to us today, or we all know someone in our lives who've actually walked away, right? What is one line, one thought that you would like to tell that person?
So, especially those people who have left, to be very honest, I think it must be very difficult for you to be there, and you have taken that step not out of your whims or impulse, but it has been built up with you. And from a perspective from a church, I think we should be very, we should be apologizing for that behavior. But what I would suggest is that, even though people have, you are hurt, And by if you have been hurt with somebody else in the church, but I would also say that you must have found somebody with whom you could share something. I think that is one person, if you could have brought that up with that person, and that would be a better way, right, to communicate. Even though you have disagreements, I think disagreements can still be talked about. So if you can talk about your negative experiences also, that would really help. I think, to actually let us know that in what way you are in hurt, so that we can change from our perspective. Because if we are not sure of what hurt you, we can't know what you actually want, right? So even what you need can't be known magically. We can't read minds. That's a myth actually. So sometimes you have to actually tell people what you need. And so this is one of the things I think you can do. And once again, really from a heartfelt, sincerely, like apologizing if that has been the case with you. We would like to come back, you to come back to us, and we would like to change, and make things right with you if you're listening to us.
I think Jasbir said it perfectly, and going back to the topic where we started this conversation with is everyone needs a community. So I think there is a lot of growth that you are missing out, and we don't want to be the reason for that, but we also want to help you to get back into the community and experience the love of God and the love of God through people. So, and that's all that I have to say.
Yes, there are lots of people who have been hurt. There is church hurt, and it's real. And I think we should talk about it more. And not only in church, but even at home. Some parents, the way they behave in the church and at home is totally different, and that could actually take them away, the children away, the youths, the kids away from church. Because like, if this is the faith that my father, my mother is doing, then I don't think it is right. So it is important to remind yourself that although there are people who are, although it's very important to have people to look up to, but it's also important that your eyes should always be on Jesus. You will see, all of us in one way or the other, we will see the dark side of the church, because we're a bunch of sinners, we're a bunch of, we are humans too. But let that not take you away from the goodness of Christ, and keep praying and try to find a good community. I think it's also important to not just keep it to yourself and talk to people, because like our friend said, unless you open up and what you think is wrong or what is hurting you, we won't know how to help you, right? So keep your eyes on Jesus, and we'll figure it out together.
Brokenness is a part of everyone's story. So don't try to fix yourself on your own. We are all broken. We're all imperfect beings, and we all need fellowship. That would be our concluding line for today. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode. And if you found our conversation striking or interesting, please do share it to more people. You could also comment in the comment section. And if you're watching this on any podcast app, you could email us at pstjeremy@gmail.com. And I'll see you in another podcast.